Denver just didn't play well, and the defense, since the Week 12 bye, has gotten worse. It's allowing 26 a game since the bye. And it's not the offense. They had 445 yards. Now, the other thing, though, I will give them credit. Teams that play Denver are 3-11 the following week. That tells you they're a really physical team, and it also tells you you should bet against the Jags this week.
Numbers.
All right, folks. We just caught a very brief snippet from Colin discussing the Denver Broncos. But you know my approach. I go all in on Broncos analysis. So, let's cut straight to a substantive conversation about this team right now. I'm going to forego my usual extended appeal for subscriptions and full video views. I'll just mention it quickly. It genuinely makes a massive difference for this channel when you watch the complete video and hit that subscribe button. It's the fuel for everything we do here. But I'll keep that part brief today because I know the Broncos faithful always show up in force. Right now, I want to engage in a real, honest dialogue about this team because, frankly, I feel like I'm holding a somewhat solitary position. The Broncos have been on an incredible heater. That momentum hit a wall with a loss, a legitimate, unambiguous defeat. There's no sugarcoating it, no convenient if-only scenarios. They lost, it happens. The reaction in the aftermath, however, felt disproportionately intense. It was a whirlwind. Whether it was a sense of schadenfreude from some quarters or an eagerness to declare, "I told you so," the narrative shift was abrupt and severe. We saw a prominent analyst like Nick dramatically drop Bo Nix in his rankings, essentially dismissing the performance with a defiant, "Some will say it's too harsh, I don't care," which felt more like trolling the fan base than analysis. The implication was a swift return to, "I never trusted Bo Nix." Let's be clear, Bo Nix was not perfect in that game. But if we're labeling it a not great outing, it was squarely in line with the standard, occasional off nights we see from every elite quarterback. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson included. It wasn't a catastrophic, franchise-altering disaster. It wasn't a performance that screams, "If he plays like this, we need a new quarterback." It was simply a game where he wasn't otherworldly, because quarterbacks aren't otherworldly every single Sunday. I took in some other Broncos-centric content from a creator known for a more lighthearted, energetic style, which I appreciate for what it is. Watching his breakdown, which seemed to frame the loss as a historically bad or devastating event, reinforced a feeling. This single loss is being perceived as far more devastating than it objectively needs to be. I've been in direct conversation with a lot of Broncos fans since Sunday and Monday. Now, days later, with the dust beginning to settle, I'm genuinely curious. How is everyone feeling? Has this loss shaken your belief in the team's trajectory? Do you feel the defense has exposed a fundamental flaw? Has your faith in Bo Nix been meaningfully diminished? From my perspective, a significant portion of this result can be attributed to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They arrived with palpable purpose and executed a near-flawless game plan. Liam Cohen and that coaching staff out-schemed the Broncos. There was a specific play, a brilliantly choreographed immediate snap at the line of scrimmage designed to keep the defense off balance, that epitomized their preparedness. They came in declaring, "We are bringing everything we have to neutralize this Broncos team," and they executed that vision. In contrast, the Broncos' approach felt more conventional, like a straight-up, "let's get after it" mentality, rather than an intricate, counter-punching chess match. The Jaguars brought the aggressive, detailed game plan. Given that context, I still firmly believe the final score of 34-20, a 14-point loss, paints a more dire picture than the actual competitive gap. The Jaguars played literally perfect, mistake-free football in key phases. The Broncos played imperfect football. When that perfect versus imperfect dynamic unfolds, the scoreboard disparity can exaggerate the true difference between the teams. The last game that illustrated this scoreboard illusion effect for me was the Chiefs-Lions matchup earlier this season. If memory serves, the final was something like 31-17, which suggests a comfortable Chiefs win. But that game could have easily been a nail-biter. A failed fourth down conversion here, a dropped pass in a critical spot there. If just one or two of those routine plays go the other way, the entire complexion of the game changes. We're not talking about needing miraculous Hail Marys. We're talking about executing on plays that are regularly made. A 31-17 final can sometimes mean you were simply outclassed. Other times, it means you were right there, but failed in a few key execution moments, and the score ran away from you. This Broncos-Jaguars game felt more like the latter. Were there mistakes by Denver? Absolutely. Was there a failure to execute in critical moments? Without a doubt. But you also had an opponent operating at peak efficiency. That combination creates a distorted final margin. Watching the game unfold was surprising, certainly. But I didn't walk away thinking the Broncos bubble has been popped, or that this was definitive proof their stock was artificially inflated. I noted that a certain analyst had them ranked second last week and plummeted them to seventh this week. I don't know. If you genuinely believed the Denver Broncos were a top 2 team in the NFL, a squad capable of winning it all, and then you see this loss amidst a long win streak, I struggle to see how that single data point justifies demoting them 5 spots, effectively removing them from true contender status in that evaluator's eyes. As he's previously indicated, only his top 4 are real Super Bowl threats. That feels like a massive overcorrection, a reactionary swing based more on narrative than a holistic evaluation. The truth, which I've stated repeatedly, apologies for sounding like a broken record, but it remains the core reality, is that I am not convinced there is a definitive, clear-cut number 1 team this season, or a definitive number 2 or 3. The landscape is characterized by parity and weekly volatility. I just finished a video on the Houston Texans before this, grappling with where they fit in a top 10 hierarchy. When you look at the cluster of 8-10 elite teams, whether you include the Steelers, Chargers, or others on the fringe, the Denver Broncos are not an obvious outlier. They are firmly in that mix. I don't feel the Broncos are, on the outside looking in any measurable way. And I can't say I feel differently about the Jaguars, Seahawks, or Rams either. They all inhabit the same tier of formidable, yet flawed, contenders. I'm not in a position to emphatically declare, Team X is clearly above the Broncos now. I wouldn't elevate the Patriots, Bears, Rams, or Seahawks over Denver based solely on this past weekend's results. Consider the Seahawks. They pulled off a miraculous win against the Rams and are now in the conversation for the top seed. That was an insane roller coaster game. This is where consistent, unbiased evaluation is crucial. I have praised the Seahawks extensively all season. Yet, I can simultaneously acknowledge that was a game they probably should have lost. Multiple truths can coexist. They deserve immense credit for the resilience and execution to win, and it's valid to note they were fortunate to escape with a victory. If a single play on that final 2-point conversion or a made field goal goes differently, we're having a completely different conversation about Seattle's standing. Team valuations cannot be that fragile. They simply can't hinge on one bounce of the ball in a single week. It doesn't make logical sense. This inherent volatility is precisely why I sometimes approach rankings on a strict week-to-week basis, deliberately ignoring prior context. That method grants the freedom to place the Broncos at the summit one week and much lower the next, because each evaluation exists in a vacuum. It's a fun, reactive exercise. But when attempting a holistic, season-long evaluation of a team's true caliber and championship viability, such drastic seismographic shifts based on one game are difficult to justify intellectually. Of all the losses we've witnessed from contenders this season, the most dramatically punitive responses seem reserved for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, and now the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix. This is ironically fitting, as I've often drawn parallels between this Broncos iteration and a Josh Allen-light Bills team. There's a familiar pattern. When Josh Allen has a less-than-stellar game in a loss, the pile-on is immediate and intense. I'm witnessing that same effect now with the Broncos. The Eagles sometimes face this, but it's different. They're reigning champs, and the criticism often carries a different, champion-targeting flavor. With the Broncos, it feels like a broader sector of the NFL media ecosystem is collectively pouncing. I believe it's an overreaction, a significant overreaction. My belief in this team's core competency remains firm. I also recognize a frustrating pattern of logic often applied to teams like the Broncos or Chargers. It's a setup for a heads I win, tails you lose criticism. If they don't win the Super Bowl, it will be framed as proof they were never truly great to begin with. This is a fallacy. The most likely outcome for every single team in the league is to not win the Super Bowl. That's the mathematical reality of a 32-team league with a single elimination playoff. Setting up a binary where only a Lombardi trophy validates a team's quality is intellectually dishonest. The Broncos could lose their next 2 games. Unless those losses are complete, systemic breakdowns where they look utterly non-competitive, it wouldn't fundamentally shake my assessment of their playoff readiness. They don't need to secure the 1 seed or win their division to prove their worth to me. Their worth has been demonstrated over the course of a long season through thrilling wins and tough losses, just like the Jaguars, Rams, Patriots, Bears, and Eagles. I've watched all those teams intimately, their highs, their lows. From that vantage point, I do not see the Broncos as possessing some unique, disqualifying liability that places them outside the contender circle. Can we critique aspects of their performance? Sure. Is their defense playing at the peak level we saw during the heart of their win streak? Perhaps not. But let's maintain perspective. Are we going to compare their defensive questions to the injury crises facing the 49ers defense, or the inconsistencies of the Bills unit, or the offensive puzzles the Texans are solving? It's not an apples-to-apples comparison. The Seahawks boast a top-tier defense, yet they were systematically dissected and outcoached by the Rams for the vast majority of their game. The Bears' offense has been explosive, yet they were stifled to 9 points for most of their contest against an injured Packers defense, needing an onside kick to truly ignite. Every team in this elite cluster has vulnerabilities and has endured a "what just happened" game. The Broncos are no exception. So I'm opening the floor. Where do Broncos fans stand now, with the initial sting subsiding? How does this loss ultimately land for you? What's your take on the wild ranking swings, from contender to afterthought in some circles? I genuinely want to know your perspective. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Whether you're aligned with my view or think I'm completely off base, let's get a discussion going. Let's have a passionate but ultimately fun exchange about this team we're all following so closely. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We are building a fantastic community here, focused on real football dialogue, and I would be honored to have you as part of it. And, as always, a thumbs up on the video helps immensely with visibility and allows us to keep creating this content. Thank you so much for your time and engagement. I'll see you next time.